Hey everyone, Gill Gross here, post-match. Novak Djokovic versus Jannik Sinner, Wimbledon 2023 semifinal. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video in 3, 2, 1. Djokovic wins in straight sets this time after the scare last year of going down 2 sets to love. It is a much more comfortable victory for Novak this time around, although I think there are a ton of parallels, a ton of similarities between the last 3 sets of last year's meeting and the only 3 sets of this year's meeting. My main note last year when Djokovic kind of took over the match was that there was a massive difference in consistency between the two players, particularly when it comes to the erratic tendencies of Jannik Sinner's forehand. And in this match, I also thought that that was the number one factor. Novak's consistency just put up against Sinner's errors, his tendency to make a whole lot more errors. And yeah, the forehand is really the wing that's mostly culpable for that, although I don't think that Sinner's backhand was necessarily a model of consistency either in this match. So let's talk about Djokovic's ability, though, to extract errors off of the Jannik Sinner forehand, because I do think that although this is a very simple concept to start out, there are multiple layers to this, and there are complexities to it, particularly because Jannik Sinner's forehand is really scary. The power that comes off of his strings, off of that wing, is literally in the 99.9 percentile. And if you told a lot of players, hey, here's the game plan, we're going to go to Sinner's forehand, I don't think that would be a very attractive strategy for most, because you have to be confident that you are going to be able to withstand and absorb the massive blows that Sinner is going to deliver off the forehand wing. And only if you are confident that you are going to be able to withstand those big blows, would you ever think about implementing a strategy where you're mainly directing traffic at the Sinner forehand. But Djokovic is so confident in his defensive skills and his absorption skills, he knows that he can go there without necessarily getting hurt. So let me just put it in one neat sentence. Djokovic's defense liberates him to go at the big, bad, scary Sinner forehand. Because if you're able to go at the big, bad, scary Sinner forehand, you do extract errors. Djokovic, 40% backhands down the line for the match, which suggests a clear intention to make Sinner hit forehands. Now, let's also get into the why. Why does Sinner's forehand miss a lot? And look, part of it's technique. Now, I'm not going to delve into details on the technique, but I actually do want to cover it at more length at some point. All right, but there are technical reasons why Sinner's forehand is harder to control and harder for him to time compared to Djokovic's forehand. There is also some decision-making aspects to it. The fact that no matter what position Sinner is in, he almost always tries to hit the ball hard. He rarely takes pace off the ball. He rarely adds spin. He rarely adds net clearance. He rarely hits to safe targets. And that is a big part, like that one speed mentality is a big part of why Sinner is missing more on his forehand. And that is, especially when he's in neutral positions and defensive positions. The other thing to bring up is pressure, nerves. The fact that Sinner's forehand tends to be at its worst in high leverage situations that suggest that Sinner has an opportunity on the scoreboard. And let's go through all the big moments of this match. Not all of them, but honestly, pretty much all of them. First game of the match, that was an opportunity for Sinner. He had a break point, and he missed a bad forehand on one of those break points. Second game of the match, chance for Sinner to get the break of serve right back. And Djokovic attacks Sinner's forehand with good quality, and Sinner misses a defensive ball. This wasn't an unforced error. It was a forced error, but still, it's a Sinner forehand error. Let's go to the second set. 1-1. Sinner's facing break point. Bad forehand shank off of a neutral ball. Unforced error. Later in the second set, chance to break back, chance to get back in it. Sinner hits a good forehand, but Djokovic defends it. Can you hit another good forehand? No. Sinner runs around. This is a slow, high floating ball. Forehand inside in finds the net for Sinner. Now let's go to the set point in the third set. Sinner makes a great return of serve. The reward, forehand in the middle of the court with plenty of time. He snatches at it. It goes wide. Forehand unforced error. It's almost uncanny how much of the same thing we would see on big points for Sinner, which is just the forehand missing the court. Again, Djokovic kind of, I think, takes advantage in a couple of ways more specifically. You know, we talk about how his defense emboldens him to do it, but I think once his defense emboldens him to do it, he can go there in multiple aspects. And I think the first thing that can bother Sinner is the pace from advantageous positions where Djokovic can attack the forehand. I think he tries to do that because Sinner's forehand defense is definitely vulnerable. But even when he can't go there, even when he's defending, particularly with his forehand on the run, I still think he likes to go either middle or cross with pace because he challenges Sinner's ability to time the redirection into the open court. It's really the timing and the redirection that brings the worst out of Sinner's forehand. Also, it's just volume. It's just a simple volume concept. Djokovic makes more returns. In fact, I have a stat here, midway through the match, or maybe this was late in the second or something. Sinner came into the match 40% unreturned first serves for the tournament, and today he was at 22%. So it's volume, more forehands because of better defense and better returning. And while we're on the defense topic, I do want to say that while Djokovic's grass court movement looked as good as ever, Sinner's movement looked shaky. When he had to move into the corners, it looked like the lack of traction on the grass was getting to him. There was a lot of slippage, and there were a lot of balance issues that was making it hard for Sinner to execute his shots on the run, and also hard for him to recover his feet and recover his positioning out of those corners. I want to give a shout out to Djokovic's mental effort. I found that, from a tennis standpoint, he played very much within himself, nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that I really want to highlight beyond the tremendous job getting it to the Sinner forehand. But mentally, I do think some moments stood out for me. One, the hindrance called by Richard Haig in a pretty big spot in the second set. I'm going to say this. I don't agree with the call. I think it's a bad call. But it is a judgment call. And by the letter of the law, Richard Haig was within his rights to make that determination. I simply don't agree with it, and I'm very biased. I have a bias against umpire interference in that kind of situation. And I simply don't think that I think Sinner would have been happy to continue to play the point, and I don't think he would have been put off by Djokovic's grunt at all. And look, I don't agree with the call, but it is a judgment call in that case, and I'll leave it at that. So that was one area. Djokovic did such a good job of just putting that behind him. No outsized emotional reaction. And he could have had one. He definitely could have had one, because that's a strange call to make in that kind of spot. And Novak said himself that, he's never had a chair umpire call that on him in his career. The second thing that I thought was interesting that Djokovic did mentally was in the third set. What is the challenge when you're up 2-0? The challenge is maintaining intensity. Don't take your foot off the gas. Try not to get comfortable and maintain a sense of focus and keep that feeling of intensity, really. That's hard when you have a big lead. That's hard when you're up 2-0. And I think what Djokovic did to kind of combat that when he felt his game slipping a little bit in the third set was he picked a fight with some members of the crowd who were getting behind Jannik Sinner. Now, it's no surprise that there were going to be audience members supporting Sinner, who is down 2-0. Of course, the Wimbledon crowd is going to do that. But I think Djokovic did do a good job here of using the crowd thing to just stay intense in the third set because, that was the way he could kind of feel like he's in the heat of battle and that he wanted to really not let that third set slip, to not give those crowd members the satisfaction. And then what happens? He saves the break points. He gives the little fake cry. I mean, he clearly used that as fuel and motivation in the third set. I want to end on Sinner. I want to talk about Jannik Sinner. Other than the mistakes that he made in the match, there were some good adjustments for him. I thought right off the bat he was using his backhand down the line a lot more. That was good. I think about midway through the match, he started approaching the net more. I would have liked to seen him do that right away, but I think once he did make the adjustment, hopefully he saw how helpful that was to him because it really was effective. There's no reason why against someone who defends as well as Djokovic that Sinner should not be using the opportunities that he creates with his power to come forward and finish at net. It is a must. I also like how he moved in and took second serve returns early to try to take advantage of Djokovic's more attackable second serves, which is probably the only crack that I saw in Novak's game today. Although in the third set tiebreak, when he was down 2-love, second serve, he found a 118 and hit a service winner, did Djokovic. The one area where I was kind of disappointed with Sinner, other than the inconsistency with, off the ground, was the hesitancy to slice. That is a shot that I think he has developed, but he just didn't really want to use it here, even in situations where I thought the ball was kind of begging to be sliced, and it cost him a couple times. Yeah, that is all I got. I think Sinner has a big issue in terms of under pressure. When it gets down to it, can he kind of keep the ball in the court in baseline rallies at the level that Djokovic can? The answer was definitely no in this match. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.